Welcome! In this series of videos, we will look at software add-ons for both the PowerBasic console and Windows compilers. Today, we will look at creating a generic bar chart generator with the free RMChart add-on from Rainer Morgan. In the previous video we did on the RMChart Designer, we created a generic application. The task was to create a pie chart like the one we're looking at now. What we're going to do today is another generic application, but this time to create a bar chart. So let's have a look at the Designer. The Designer application itself is a completely standalone application that needs the RMChart DLL in the same folder. If we run this application now, we get the Designer. Now we're going to change a few things in the Designer to give us something close to what we're after. We can pick the background colour to be any colour we like. Let's go for that. It's a nice slightly off-white. Okay, now the basic chart type we're going for today is not a pie chart. In this case, it'll be a bar chart. And if we go to region 1, we can then put our details in. We'll up the font size slightly. We'll leave it on font bold. And we'll put our caption in like we did in the previous pie chart. Now we'll put a footnote down at the bottom to say when the chart was actually created. And we will populate that in the code. Now we'll turn on a gradient on this one. And I think we'll go for biochromatic accesses on this one. Now, having set that up, one thing you can do with the minimum and maximums in a bar chart, if you leave the maximum as 0, then the program itself will work out which is the biggest size. Now we'll put our label access in place. The tick count is 5, so there are 5 columns. So since we know at the moment there's only going to be 3 columns, we'll move it to 3. And we will put in our console users, Windows users, and both. And there they appear at the bottom. Now we will add a series to this chart, and we'll leave it as bar chart for the moment. And we'll put 3 values in. And if we leave it as that, it gives us 3 bars. Now, we may want to jazz that up slightly. We'll change our bar type. Let's try that. Gradient style 2, that's quite a nice one. Yeah, that's a nice one. Now you can also change the colour to any colour you wish, and there's a wide range of colours. Let's go for something, let's try green this time. Now we can make the colour transparent so you can see through for the lines. We can, if we wish, do a different colour for each bar. We'll leave it as green for the moment. And you get the option of putting value labels on. And if there are zeros, we'll put no zeros to show. Right, so there is our basic bar chart. So, how do we turn that into code? Now we have designed something that has the look that we want. Go up to the File menu, click on the Get Source, and this gives us a complete ready-to-go source. If we OK that, now we will save this designer just in case we have to go back later. and we'll call this one bar chart. And we can now exit out the designer and we can launch our PowerBasic Windows compiler. And we can paste in our code, and there is all our code. Now, while we move the pathing for this one, we know the RMChart include file is in the same folder as where we are. So if we save this, and we will just run our code. And there is what we wanted. We have quite happily got our chart as we designed it on the screen. If we were to make this a generic application, we'll have to pass information on the command line to this application so that they can actually populate all the details. So let's have a look at the PB main. Now, as we did in our previous application, we'll want to set up some global variables, which we'll put in, because we'll need to specify the name of the JPEG file to save. We'll need to have our parameters to accept our parameters. We'll need data, we'll need a legend, and we'll need a title. So if we just take the details that we had in our previous program, paste them right in, they will have in almost everything we need to actually handle our details. We're using this function return name parameters to pull back the name parameters on the command line. This is a function we created for our last program, so we'll just paste this one in at the bottom of our code to accept our parameters. So let's have a look at what we're actually passing in. The gParameters variable is accepting everything that comes in on the command line. We're pulling out of that string the path and the name of the JPEG or PNG file that we wish to save. We're pulling also out of that file the legend, basically the name of each of the columns, the data being a delimited list of data, numbers for our columns, and the title being the title of the entire chart. Now you can of course add additional parameters, but these are the basic ones. So having got that information, when we show the dialog, the chart basically gets generated using the doTheChart function. So if we have a look at doTheChart, this is where the chart itself is actually set up. Some of these values we want to change so we can actually put in dynamic information. For example, the footer currently has created and a blank date. We can quite happily put in there the date and time. PowerBasic of course returns the date in the US format. You can quite happily use a function to turn the date into a UK format if you need it in a different format. So having done that, the title of the entire chart is at the moment hard-coded. We'll want to replace that with the global variable we had set up for that one. That will slot in our title for the chart. Now the next thing we'll want to slot in is the data information. So as we did in our last program, the AData array, which is a double, needs to be redimensioned for the size of the data we're passing in. Now the global variable called strdata is pipe delimited we're passing in, so it's basically counting how many entries there are minus 1, because the AData array starts at element 0. So this will redimension our array. And having got our data in, we want to create and populate the data array. And for this we'll need a little for next loop. Using of course the parse count command, as we did before, to count how many elements we're doing. Now, since we've started using long R as a variable, we'll need to declare that one. Right, so now we've sorted out the data, we now have to sort out the legend itself. Now, further down here where the columns have actually specified is down here, and we want to remove this hard coding with our data. We'll just steal the code we used in the last program to populate the data. Basically, we're using strtemp, which is another variable we'll declare in a moment. We're stepping through the legend text, which is asterisk delimited, and we're pulling out the legend, trimming off the last asterisk, and then passing that straight into strtemp. And strtemp is populated straight into the label axis. So since we're using strtemp, let's just declare that one up at the top. Now further down here we will find there is hard-coded information in a data array, which we will need to remove because we've already populated that. And the other thing we will need to do is change this part. Now at the moment this 3 refers to the number of elements in a data array. Now as this will vary depending on the data we pass, we need to work that out using ubound. So ubound will be the number of elements in the array plus 1, since we're starting at 0. So that should be all the changes we need to make to the actual chart itself. Now all we have to do is to go into the event handler of the dialog, the callback routine itself, so we can actually handle the triggering of the chart. So up at the top here, where we've got the variables declared, we're going to create 2 new variables, which I will just paste in. One as a timer, which is static. A static variable within a callback function is one that retains its value for each call to the function. Normally in a function, every time you call it, variables which are declared using the local scope will be blank each time you move into the function. A static variable will retain its value, which is very useful. The other one we're using is an ASCII Z variable, which is basically a null terminated string for the maximum length of the path, which I believe is 1024. So what we need is another event. For when the dialog is initialized. And this will handle running on the command line. We're going to call an API called setTimer. We will pass that a number of parameters. First of all, the dialog handle. Second one is the timer number. This is our first timer, so it's number 1. We'll wait an arbitrary 1000 milliseconds, basically a full second, just to leave the chart on screen long enough so we can actually see it's doing something. And then the last variable is a by-val null. Now, having set the timer up, the timer will start running as soon as the form loads. And it will trigger every 1000 milliseconds, every second. And we'll put an event in to handle that, called WTimer. And the first thing to do is to kill the timer, because we only intend this event happening once. So again, we pass the dialog handle and the htimer, which we got back from setting the timer. Having said that, our next task is then to populate the variable we set up earlier for the name and path to the file, and we're going to use the variable we passed on the command line for the location and path to the JPEG file that we wish to save. Next is actually to draw the chart itself, and there's a very nice routine set up within RMChart that does that for you quite nicely. Well, we need two parameters in this case, one being the handle of the chart itself, which the program has already created for you, and the second being the name of the file that we're going to be saving to. Then as soon as it's completed that, we want to end the dialog. And since this is the only dialog in the system, it will effectively close off the program and complete. Now let's try a compile. Make sure we haven't missed anything. Yes, we have. What have we missed? We have a syntax error in this one. We're missing a bracket. And for some reason we haven't got that set. Let's just make that equal to an empty line string at the moment. And then we'll compile. And it compiles cleanly. Now, since this application accepts everything on the command line, what we need to do is to test it out. So we had a batch file the last time to test this out. So we will rename this as run bar chart, and we'll have a look at the information we've got inside this file. So it's called the generic pie chart generator. We'll just change that to bar chart generator. The path is slightly different, so we will change our path. And we'll call this one chart 3. We'll keep the legend as it was, we'll keep the data as it was, and we'll keep the title as it was. So if we save that now, and we can try running it. And there it has run. And we have a chart 3. If we open up chart 3, and there is our chart, with the data we asked to be put into it, the title, and the date and time at the bottom. Now we can prove this is actually going to be quite generic just by changing our batch file. And we'll add a little more information into it. Let's have an other category. And we will put in another number in there. And if we try saving that, again, we have not changed the executable. We will be changing the command line parameters. We run that now. Let's have a look at do the chart. What have we missed? This is what we missed. We haven't changed the number of columns. It's hard coded in here for 3 columns. So what we'll need to put in there is we'll need to put another U-bound. Data plus 1. Now we've already done the redim further up. Yes, we have. So the tick count is now correctly populated. So if we compile that now, and we go back to our batch file, on our batch file now, and we now correctly have 4 columns appearing. there is a fourth column. Now you'll notice, since we set the minimum and maximum to be 0, if we increase the value of this, it won't run off the top of the chart. The chart itself will rescale itself. So if we go back to our batch file and we edit it again, and we'll put a much larger number in. We'll save that now. We will run our bar chart again, and you will see from the chart that comes up that the program has itself rescaled and put the top number much larger than it needs to be, just to give you enough room to get the images in. So this completes today's look at RM charts for bar charts. Now this is a single series bar chart. You can do multiple series bar charts, but we'll cover that in a later video. Thank you for watching.